And then we just kind of let people trickle in, and then I'll begin in like 5 minutes. But yeah, we're live. So yeah.
Probably one of the few hypergraph hours where you've been outnumbered by Brits, Ben.
We got our independence though. Yeah, no, I think that's true. I always enjoy when there's like no Americans and there's all Brits. You guys just have like a very calm manner about yourselves, and the Americans are like, let's bulldoze this, like throwing the tables and like, I don't know, man.
Well, we can try and dial it up a bit if you want, mate.
I would love it. I mean, you guys definitely do. So we normally have a couple hundred people, give or take, on these. You know, it all kind of depends. But you know, seeing where the markets are right now, I think everybody like loses interest. Like, screw this, I'm gonna go back to my job.
Yeah, I mean,
crypto.
There's still advertising dollars looking to sort of engage with individuals.
So,
you know, and those ad dollars don't really care about the price of Bitcoin. They really only care about the price of sort of, you know, that click or that view.
Well, is this where I should be like, Constellation sponsored by? Oh man, let's see. I'm going to let a few more minutes trickle in.
I think you are bang on though, Matt. Like one of the best protections against the bear market is ad dollars. I mean, any real world dollars at all. You know, like it's not just crypto to crypto based products. Like bridging that gap into the real world and servicing real businesses with blockchain technology is going to be pretty sweet.
Yeah, definitely. Also, obviously, people are trying to transition, and some people have transitioned to cryptocurrency, and it's just a case of like, you know, how does that look? Well, ultimately, they already trust conventional brands anyway, so it's kind of, it makes sense that you can sort of marry the two things up and sort of sell some of that engagement on behalf of the individual.
Guys, save the talk. Let's save the talk. I love it. I love that you guys are like so eager to get this going.
It's like a little trailer.
Yeah. Well, now I feel like with Twitter Spaces and everything, like people have this like, oh, the randomization that happens, and now this is like, oh, do I really want to go to the filming of the Tonight Show? I'll just watch the Tonight Show when it comes on, right? So why don't I kick this off? So we'll get going right now. Got a good, decent size. I'm Ben Jorgensen, CEO of Constellation. I'm going to be interviewing Alkimi Exchange, going to be interviewing Realm. This is awesome because this is kind of a real expression of our ecosystem. Also kind of, you know, from the Constellation side, the last month has been fun, minus the markets, but what has been fun is to see kind of the sentiment from our community stake about 1.35 billion DAG, which was about $300 million worth of DAG, or 55% of the circulating supply. And some really fun things are coming up when we start to see the sentiment of our community and what we can do. We're also kind of in the final days of selling our door traffic miners, which provide DAG rewards for collecting real world foot traffic data and really building out our data collective footprint. So those will be closing at the end of the month. And then we'll be doing a restaking program. We'll initiate restaking for DAG in the beginning of March. And then on March 2nd, I'll be doing a State of the Union that really kind of looks at where Constellation went from 2021, where we're going in 2022, talking about, you know, what's our vision? How do we go forward, and what are the exciting things on the roadmap, which the next 6 months are going to be absolutely manic, and I'm really excited. But why I'm happy to be on this call today with Realm and Alkimi is because this kind of sets the pace for 2022. And it's interesting to have both a metaverse play and an advertising play with an infrastructure play all together on a phone call, right? Like I think that what we're starting to see around buzzwords with the Web3 initiative and everybody talking about Web3 to the metaverse, like, and you start to see traditional tech companies in Web2 navigate to this story. We have partnerships coming into our ecosystem that 2 years ago had said, hey, we don't want to be mentioned. We don't want to mention that we're working with a cryptocurrency company. And now Web2 sees that their only relevance in the future is to latch on to Web3, this idea of autonomous data ownership, automated payments that require cryptocurrency. And now is a new frontier of commerce, of advertising that's really in the metaverse. And I haven't really talked to the community, and it's a piece that I'm kind of building up in anticipation for the State of the Union, is how do all these things merge and how does Constellation play into this? Well, this is the starting conversation, is that Constellation plays a huge infrastructure role into the metaverse. Our L0 token standard with zero transaction fees can be a standard used by commerce, advertising, existing in a new future state that traditional advertising companies can't do. And Realm kind of leading the development of what do these environments look like? What does commerce look like in this environment? All really painting the picture for 2022 and 2022 and beyond, which is very exciting. So I'll shut the heck up because I'm going to be talking to everybody in a couple of weeks here. But I'm excited about this. And here we have, I think you guys just launched your partnership, the Realm Alkimi partnership. Guys, maybe you want to maybe you want to take a stab at like talking about the partnership. Why is this valuable? What's interesting to you all?
Yeah.
Start. Go ahead.
Okay, cool. So Realm is a mobile first metaverse. What we enable people to do is create realms, which are small virtual environments. They can be scaled to a large size, but the sort of polygon count starts to come down. Inside those environments, you can layer gamification on top. So, racing games through to puzzles and things like this, through to something more conventional, maybe, a conference, a meeting, or an event, which may be sort of, music related and more leisure related. Naturally, whenever you have engagement inside a metaverse or any digital platform, one of the key ways that people have obviously monetized that is sort of looking at the data and figuring out how they can sort of process it in order to sort of understand what that person might be interested in. And so one thing that Realm did differently, well, two key things. One, we targeted mobile first. We're really just not interested in anything around like VR. There's like maybe 10, 15 million VR units in the world, and there's billions of smartphones. We see the metaverse as a really valuable piece of technical real estate. That ultimately, if multiple people own fully their realm, own their assets, they're inside their wallets, they get paid on a blockchain in a sort of a censorship-free way. We think that could be quite uplifting for society as a whole. We've been interested in doing advertising right, in people owning their data, being able to clearly opt in and understand how it's being used, rather than us having to hide, what we're actually doing with it into, 600 pages of terms and conditions. We're like, hey, you'll get paid this much if you hand this piece of data over. And that's kind of where Alkimi comes in. We're obviously looking to sort of make it as streamlined as possible to bring those ad dollars into the Realm Metaverse, and potentially distribute a decent portion of those to the sort of data owner, the player who runs around and gives insight to the advertiser. So I'll let Ben take over.
Yeah, I think it was Facebook changed their name to Meta, right? Like it was obvious that's where they think eyeballs are going, and they're an advertising company, so are we. So I think it made sense to us to provide advertisers with the means to access users that are engaging with the metaverse in a way that is transparent, is fair, and kind of rewards everyone providing value in the advertising exchange, like the publisher of the realm, you as the user, and the advertiser itself. Like if you look at who's making metaverses, it's brands that are going into it in a big way because they provide value. They provide a product, a service, they have loyalty, people have fandom around it. It's not going to be the soulless tech companies that have been manipulating data for God knows how long to the majority of their benefit. You know, this is a way in which we can reward users where those eyeballs end up, which is looking like it's going to be metaverses, you know, kind of all leaning that way. So it's like, it would be remiss of us not even to consider it, and to be able to partner with Realm is a pretty awesome place to be, to not just support ads for the future, but like there is an immediacy to this market today. So which just makes it just hugely exciting that we can service the wants of advertisers today and whatever the ad products look like in the future. I'm sure we'll talk about them, but yeah, there's some pretty exciting iterations of what ads can be 2-3 years down the line, you know, not far.
Well, you know, I think it's interesting that both of your platform, you know, if you think about Facebook, and I'm going off script, by the way, guys. So you're going to learn one thing is that I don't like it when people send me a script, and I love throwing curveballs, but because I want to create that organic conversation here. But, you know, Facebook coming out with Meta and saying like, hey, we're going to go in the metaverse. Like, well, we know that's the only way you have to go at this point, right? But what you guys have at your DNA, both of your companies, is that you put the user first, you put decentralization first. And that's really powerful because it's making the individual the internet versus the internet pushing to the individual. Here's content. You're saying, hey, here's the individual. They are now the internet. They are the node. And you're building solutions around this kind of amorphous or big ubiquitous flow, right? So advertising. So talk more about how you're putting the community first, because Facebook can't do what you guys are going to do. Their DNA inherently will reject, like a virus and an immune system, to decentralization, so they can shift. But talk about how you guys are rethinking the operations and development.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you look at Facebook, I think it's about 97.9% of their business, so their revenue comes from advertising dollars. They've obviously sold a lot of shares, and they have a legal fiduciary responsibility to maximize shareholder profit to those shareholders, for those shareholders. So when we kind of look at that, we actually see that as a weakness to adoption of a new platform, of a metaverse, especially when you have the kind of brand that Facebook does for, you know, doing all the things that we know of, essentially misusing data. Yeah, so we built two mechanisms, which essentially, advertising is built around engagement. Really, that's all it is. It's like, where are the eyeballs and how do we monetize it? So we built a model, which is a play to earn model and a build to earn model. We ultimately know that if people run around the metaverse, they could be generating data which they can sell, you know, for advertising purposes. We also know that if people build realms, which are, you know, fun interactive spaces, games that people play a lot, you know, event spaces, etc., that there's a bunch of engagement inside that space. So what we do is, with both sides of that equation, we essentially reward realm tokens, the utility token of our metaverse, to both the builders and to the players. And that's the key way that we're looking to kind of push out ownership in the Realm Metaverse in a fair way, because we ultimately take a sort of a pretty flat approach to it, saying, hey, look, if someone's running around the metaverse in the Philippines, their time is equal value to somebody who's running around, you know, in central London. They both get the same amount of realm rewards as a player. And we think that's a fair way of sort of distributing something and cutting across some of the socioeconomic divisions that we see, you know, globally. That's kind of our key basis. And then ultimately we just look at, you know, what would be an effective model to fairly sort of distribute some of the revenue stream to, say, the individual who provides the data, to the platform. We're pretty hot on social impact, so we've built a lot of like environmentalism directly into the metaverse. we've got game loops, core game loops, where you kind of have to create food. The way you do that's by growing trees. When you grow trees, we plant real trees in real life, and so on and so forth. And you'll see that expand across everything from, trees through to removing plastic bottles in the ocean, etc. If you look at the macro trends in advertising, take for instance Adidas at the Australian Open, they built a recycled plastic tennis court and floated it in a reef, which seems counterintuitive, but I hear it's been removed and will find its way to a school sort of tennis court or something like that. So yeah, we're just kind of trying to position ourselves with a triple stakeholder value out the back of all of the operations that occur inside Realm. We distribute a third of the sort of profits as such will go into the staking pool to be rewarded to stakers. A third will go to social impact causes, and a third will go to Realm to grow the metaverse.
And Alkimi, how do you guys see kind of reinventing the advertising infrastructure and merging that into Realm?
I think it's kind of twofold. One is just like the ability to now reward that individual based off of things they do in the metaverse anyway. You could be walking around in the realm you build, you see a billboard for, I use Gucci as an example because they have NFTs right now, they're releasing their own metaverse. You jump into Gucci, you buy the shirt, you get an NFT dropped in your wallet that you visit the metaverse with, but also you as your character now has that same shirt. So then you immediately become an influencer for that brand because of the measurement and the metrics that are available, because this is happening inside of a 3D environment. You can see exactly who that person in that virtual Gucci shirt affected. Did they yield any purchases on the back of someone walking past them, talking to them, whatever it may be? So you're able to kind of bring in just behavioral data to reward the user, but then also that becomes very interesting to advertisers to target ads. If it was someone that walked past a billboard, a virtual billboard, and did a double take, you could say that ad was particularly striking to that individual, and we know that X and Y about them because they've surfaced that through their wallet, so that then using existing infrastructure can then be piped into the buyers, advertisers right now that can use that to decision campaigns in a way they never have done before. And where it gets really exciting is if you are getting delivered an NFT. So say you saw an ad in a metaverse, you actually physically went to the store into Gucci and bought the t-shirt itself. You then get a QR code, scan that QR code to get the NFT for that wallet. That then becomes present in the metaverse. You're now drawing conversion lines between online and offline advertising in a way that is literally physically impossible right now. So in terms of just value to the advertiser, it's going to increase exponentially because there's not going to be any wasted media spend. You can target ads more efficiently and just get more bang for your buck without taking the piss out of the user at the end by like dropping an interstitial in. You're incentivizing the action, which improves the way that people interact with ads because everyone is respected more inside of the chain. So it's actually pretty fucking huge, to be honest with you. It's complete lane shift while still kind of being current enough to be relevant right now, so it's
in the shortest possible terms, like we can just pump in current demand by using OpenRTB, which is something that exists already today, like on the internet. Every time you load a page, that's what's loading in the background to serve ads. We've got the ability to just serve those kind of ads straight into billboards in the metaverse, which gives us a viable product like from the get-go. Yep. Which, it's just something that we'll be able to track in a completely different way. The bid object that we'll be using will have way more information on it just from a sort of today point of view. That means that there's decisions that can be made on the back end that haven't been available to buyers before.
Quite a fascinating point on that as well is that Realm differentiates itself from a lot of metaverses in that they have a fixed amount of land. So if like Sandbox, let's say it's 150,000 land parcels, Realm made I think we were the first people to do it. We invented like a dual land structure. So we have a central city. It's like a radial city, has 4 rings. You land in the middle. And then each of these land parcels is about 10,000 in the city, connect to realms. But we can create an infinite amount of realms, which means that, once you move past, say, for instance, 150,000 land parcels at Sandbox, what do they do to actually scale? If you had an advertising revenue stream there, how would you really increase the size of that revenue stream? Only by taking up more real estate, more visual space with adverts, which doesn't seem like a very good option to me. What we've really done is we've sold land in this central city, and there will be billboards and there's portals in there which take you to these realms. But ultimately on the back end, we see no issue with people deciding when they create a realm themselves if they want to have billboards in there, and maybe that's more and more inventory just grows over in the Realm Metaverse, which can obviously directly tap into sort of these existing mobile ad formats.
So guys, I'm curious. Sorry, Joban, were you going to say something?
I was just going to chime in on kind of the adoption and ultimately, if we're using, like, we've got, as Chorley says, we've got a really kind of clear route to starting this because we use existing ad formats. But then as like the return on investment shows, hopefully we'll get advertisers actually wanting to put the effort in to create 3D advertisements and experiential, like whole worlds and experiences around ads that at the moment they wouldn't see maybe the value in. But as this kind of, hopefully if we get the returns on this initial rollout of using standardized formats, then they'll kind of see the value in that.
So, being on the devil's advocate over here, how do you think that users are going to see like, oh, I want to go to the metaverse because I don't have to deal with ads, and now they're getting inundated with ads. How do you prevent users for getting overwhelmed with advertising and be okay with it?
I think it's opt-in. It just has to be opt-in. I mean, ultimately there's nothing stopping any set of parameters, like stake a certain amount of some token and just have it, stat there, staked or locked or something, and you'll never see adverts. That's a completely fine value proposition. You see adverts as a free player, but those adverts are not really targeted because you didn't share, say, any basic information like the types of realms that you go in. Maybe you go into fashion realms all the time and, watch catwalks. So Gucci want to target you with their adverts, but we don't share that with them. So you're seeing randomized adverts. And then there's more, hey, I'm going to share what realms I've attended, all these fashion ones. And Gucci's like, hey, I'll pay because I know that you're interested in maybe the Gucci NFT or the Gucci realm type experience that we have in the metaverse.
There's also been quite a lot of research as well that suggests that like good advertising in the right place is effective and people don't mind it. And I think if you use the right kind of formats that are more engaging, people don't mind using advertising to discover new products. It's the fact that people are overloaded with too many adverts on a web page, or, bad ads that, suggest that they should do, something that's against, their own health and things like that, which we obviously all think should be got rid of. But if you have like correct like delivery of adverts in a metaverse, it gives people an option to like go through and complete that purchase in a brand new way that is way more engaging than just being on a website. So I think it's more about how you deliver those ads and like in what format you deliver them, rather than just like all ads are bad.
Yeah, I agree. It's like Instagram have a good ad product. It's just fucking spooky because it's like you don't remember when you told them about the pair of shoes you told your girlfriend about. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I never told you that, Facebook. Like, were you listening? How have you inferred that? And you're like, whoa, fuck you, that's weird. And I think that just by being respectful and giving people the chance to opt in or out, it's then up to them to make the decision. Like, is the reward for seeing ads worth the intrusion? Probably, if it's not intrusive, and respects the way you use whatever device that might be. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Chor, as usual.
Well, one thing that I'll say is that you guys, both companies, are attempting to kind of shift the narrative and using gaming mechanics. So, Alkimi, you guys launched for the community. They launched a staking program where people could get an NFT, and the NFT went into a game. And so you're starting to take people around these like journeys that are more engaging than just a kind of a static wallet. In Realm, you guys are using gaming as well to like make these realms more engaging. Like, talk more about how you guys see game mechanics and immersive experiences unfolding between the partnership.
Yeah. So I'll give you an example of, say, a golf company. Sounds kind of quite boring. They might think, how do I grow my company in the future? It's like, well, we probably got to target the young children, and we need to get them so that they understand about our brand and not some other golf brand. How might we do that? We might make a realm where, for instance, there's 3 sets of clubs. That it's ping golf, like there's the brand, there's the basic, the mid-level, and the higher tier. You use play to earn mechanics on the background, so there's some reward, be it an NFT, be it realm tokens, be it any token that we load into that realm. And you have people essentially learn that the pro model has sort of the carbon fiber is more accurate and 25% more range. And they do this by playing a super simple game on their phone, where they're essentially just trying to do a hole in one or something like that with a driver. This to me is like more interesting. And then maybe people win some swag from Ping, and they're sort of walking around the metaverse with this, Ping golf hat on. And now suddenly what you've done is something which is relevant to your intended clientele. You didn't just put a billboard up. You said, hey, we understand what you're interested in. You're interested in fun, gamified environments where you can potentially win some unknown object at the end. Maybe even pair that with physical interactions, like someone might win, a set of golf clubs or something along those lines.
Alkimi?
Yeah, so we've talked about the gamification of e-commerce, especially when you look at the way that people will interact with brands kind of in the future. It's not just going to be that kind of one-way conversation of you tell me a message about your brand and then I decide whether I'm going to buy something from you. Instead of that, we're going to see people really like having a two-way conversation with those brands. So it's great for a brand to understand what their users want beforehand, before they go and make a product, rather than try and just pitching something to them out of the blue with a message that they think might fit with the audience they're trying to hit. So there's like a lot of ways that brands can do that, especially with using NFTs. As Ben mentioned, like if somebody completes a purchase in real life, they can then have that in a metaverse, and they can wear it. And they can have a different relationship to it than they did just when they were wearing it at home or out and about in the real world. And that obviously then leads into like how they can then monetize their own influence that they're having in that metaverse. So really like adds to like loads more layers for e-commerce to like add gamification into what they do in an actual game, or just in the way that they gamify their actual e-commerce towards individual users.
How do you guys create a programmatic, scalable impact? I hear a lot around these custom branding experiences, and it starts to remind me back of like 2012 when Facebook games came out and Zynga games, and like, oh, we're going to monetize it by having these avatars with certain things, and brands did nice experimental budgets. And they would go, oh, here's, we'll charge $50,000 for a hat and call it engagement. And then you get likes. And it was really tough to, Facebook had this massive engine that could sell brands on the value of likes, and how that data set became a collective that then could influence people to, drive product purchasing. How do you, and that's going to be a really hard thing to do. And you can, beyond a decentralized infrastructure that collects data, how are you guys going to create a scalable and programmatic approach to advertising to really attract advertisers and into your ecosystems? That's kind of wild card on who wants to answer that. Maybe Alkimi on the programmatic side, and then how Realm, you're going to be able to create some sort of standardized unit in that.
Yeah,
I think sorry, go ahead, Joban. Yeah.
Well, I mean, from our side, obviously we'll be working to kind of provide really granular attribution data that works, in accordance with what Alkimi are looking for, right? And that will help us to, in terms of, we know exactly where everybody's looking, we know exactly where they go, and obviously they can go to someone, because obviously we're a user-generated platform, right? So someone could build a game that, is themed around a certain certain sector of users, right? And then they can put a billboard in and gain the money from having that billboard in their realm. And then the targeting obviously will go to the kind of people that kind of enjoy that space, right? So there's a number of different ways that people can kind of work on attribution. And then obviously, if we're connected to a wallet and they go directly and buy, then we've got quite a closed loop there. But yeah, it's going to be like a process between us to kind of come up with what metrics work to serve the right things.
I might also add that actually there's an exponential function that's built into Realm's advertising inventory. So when you add a product that, let's say, call it this Gucci NFT handbag, they've got a Realm, let's say someone goes to their shop, is like, cool, I'll buy that. Now that person's walking around the metaverse and they are now an advert. So like you can put a link from that object directly back, and essentially what you have is an affiliate scheme. And then maybe their friend buys one of those bags, and now you have 10,000 bags walking around the metaverse. And suddenly there's a market constantly occurring where people are trying to buy these bags. And yeah, then take that for every single object that occurs inside the metaverse. So ultimately there's basically each object is a node which can send you to some point. Direct you in a certain way, which ultimately can result in a purchase. You know, you might want to think about it, say, for instance, Gucci then hands that handbag to an avatar, which is a musician who's playing then in front of 60,000 people in a metaverse concert. And then they all click on that bag to be like, hey, what's that? And then they sell 2,000 of them. You can see how that kind of that system takes away the conventional billboard approach and really actually personalizes and has a complete circle of what you would see with an influencer. So usually ad dollars go into influencers on Instagram, and we do some kind of analytical tracking to see, you know, how many sales did we get, you know, who came from this, you know, direction, etc. You can do all of that inside the metaverse. And naturally NFTs lend themselves to that, because you essentially just make a slot for the wearer in the royalty structure of an NFT. And now that wearer automatically gets a cut if somebody comes through them, goes to that store and purchases that object.
I think on like the brand side of things as well is that they won't just only advertise in the metaverse, but by advertising in the metaverse, you start to gain adoption of just wallets in general, Web3 wallets, I mean, as well, where right now I only use it to make transactions with cryptocurrencies, you know, but there's no reason why that couldn't just be my personal data store that I take with me everywhere, which now, because I went into Ping's metaverse and hit a shot with a golf club, they might then see me on a website, or if I'm walking past a billboard in the real world, you know, or if there's a door sensor above the Ping store, they can ping my golf club that I have, and then everyone in the shop knows I have that club, and I get a new NFT. So when I go back to the game, I've got a new club to play with. I think it allows brands to take advantage of adoption of a new technology, which then allows us to surface that more often to more buyers, wherever you want to find it, or Ping to retarget on the exchange itself. It's just creating more adoption for a better solution to targeting ads on the internet than a cookie. So I think that's where, by experimenting with metaverses, they're actually kind of protecting their traditional advertising formats, because they have this really new, nifty, determined way to target their people, their customers, basically. And even to find, I mean, there's no reason why, if someone had gone into the tailor-made game instead of Ping, that iPing couldn't send them an advertisement wherever that says we're cheaper, you know. So like, just by every brand going in, it provides more markers for more brands to use to educate whatever future media strategy they end up using, you know. So I think that it's really helping usher in adoption through things that people trust, you know. Like, I don't think many people trust Facebook, but a lot of people trust brands, you know, like, trust them to do the job they say on the tin. Some that do better than others, you know, but like, brands are trustworthy. People have affiliation to brands and will more likely do something if it's sponsored by it, rather than a Facebook or Google or whoever, you know, because the brand has provided value to that individual and other platforms haven't. So I think it's like, it's huge. It's like, feels like it's something that's going to kind of step in here and then it just blows up, you know, and then looks backward and swallows everything up with it. It just improves advertising in general, the scale and addressability of users, because everyone's being respected in this system now.
I think it's a fascinating correlation that you made with like the door traffic miner, and you know, a lot of people are like, well, how does this impact me? And I think when you start looking at the three companies here, you see that this door traffic miner is measuring and creating a giant data collective of all foot traffic data. And that gives an idea of how people move, where they move, when, which can impact an advertiser to be like, why aren't they going into Nordstrom's or Neiman Marcus? How do we get another touch point with that user if it shows that we have a really big footprint, but yet we're not penetrating that market, or that market's extremely valuable? How can we connect with that user in a different way where ultimately we know they're there? And that comes into this like second screen experience with the metaverse and going into a realm to have that interaction and engagement, while then being able to target advertising appropriately. So you see this kind of multi-dimensional physical to digital world really become enmeshed. And I think that's a really fascinating story that, you know, us as founders, we have to start connecting those dots for people. People don't always see those things. This to me is like a huge opportunity for interoperability to exist, not just between different blockchain ecosystems, but from the physical world to the digital world to the data world, right? Like all of these multi-dimensional realms that break down or deconstruct the user. Sorry, I went on a tangent there, but
it's really interesting. People probably don't know, but Joban and myself founded a company some time ago. It was called Unified. We were there for about 6 years. We invented an internal positioning system using Bluetooth to accurately locate devices inside buildings to 1 meter squared. It's kind of where I actually started to learn about the ethics of data harvesting, and I found it quite difficult to essentially scrape massive amounts of data on people's accelerometer, where they are, what they're looking at. And yeah, a lot of what we did actually was about people moving in and out of spaces. So, you know, we could tell you literally when the cleaner walked into an office, picked up a mug and walked back out, and deactivate the lights inside the room and the AC because they get flicked on by a PIR sensor. So we've specialized pretty much for the last decade in the interaction between a physical and a digital layer. And now we've kind of inverted it, and we create digital spaces and connect these people to it through their phone. I could see, for instance, like your door sensor being utilized in some of the real world applications that we're looking at. So sort of brands that have both physical real estate and obviously are looking at the metaverse as essentially a global sort of shop front for themselves, and kind of thinking about, hey, look, you know, obviously we're in a game space. So there was a game type store or something like that. You would maybe want to do something interactive inside their store and reward people for attending there. It would make sense to potentially have one of these sensors at the door, understand like actually what occurred there, and make sure that the right people were being rewarded.
Yeah, no, I love it. And like this future is right here. You know, to answer a couple more questions, I have just like building up in me I start to think back to the mobile revolution in the early 2000s. God, I'm showing my age, but everybody's like, man, mobile is going to change advertising. It like didn't happen. And then another year went on. It didn't happen. And it didn't happen again. How are you guys overcoming this like next pivot of advertising and another touch point with the customer versus what happened in mobile, which I saw like mobile ad exchanges pop up, and yet they couldn't make it. It took like way too long. The adoption went forever. How do you guys see bridging that gap so that that people aren't too early to get involved in Realm? They're not too early to get into advertising decentrally. How does that look to you guys?
Well, just on the, you know, is it the right time to start in Realm? I tend to think if you look at the people that became successful every time a new sort of social media application came in, and bear in mind, Realm it's a React Native app, so Android and iOS. You're in what looks like Instagram, essentially, newsfeed, etc., things that are occurring inside the metaverse. And then you can tap in from people's profiles or things in the newsfeed to certain areas in the metaverse. I think we're kind of the opinion that that solution is best. And sorry, I forgot the question right there.
The question is, how do you
How do we
circumvent
get
skeptics
Yeah.
that like it's too early for this? Just like the mobile revolution was like promising that everything would go mobile and people would be off their computers, and then it was like, oh yeah, guys, we're totally wrong. It's multi-screen now. It's multi-screen, right? And like there's this whole like skepticism, and there's probably skepticism that you guys deal with customers. How do you circumvent that? And really get people in now versus like experimental?
I guess, rewards help. We recently launched a program actually today called Stake to Build, which basically enables people to stake into projects which are going to build realms. We then unlock some realm, a fairly small grant, maximum of about $30,000 in realm. There's some milestones set. Obviously, that incentivization helps, and the benefits of being early in the metaverse are the same when anyone was early in social media apps. You can get disproportionate amounts of traffic because there's not a huge amount going on in there. You can get ahead of the curve and have people understand that brand, follow your profile, etc., and grow you. So we're sort of taking that approach, a balance of sort of incentivization and really just trying to support people actually. What we noticed is everyone's talking about the metaverse, but a lot of people are quite like concerned. It's like, how does it work? Like, what do I need? Do I need a 3D modeler? Do I need someone who can code these certain languages? So on and so forth. So Realm was really, our key thing was to try and make building really easy. So a lot of templated stuff, drag and drop visual builders, moving objects around, essentially kit bashing scenes together. That and import pipelines, obviously from Maya, C4D, and Blender, most of the open source tech and the industry tech. And then, pretty much that's it. And maybe we'll move to even a template model where you just like, hey, I want to create a space, and you just essentially use a template. That simple.
Yeah, I think it's interesting as well that you mentioned mobile, because I think the fundamental problem that mobile had was it wasn't really that different. I mean, you were going from a screen like this to a screen like this, and the advertising experience didn't really change. So the formats on there weren't necessarily like doing anything better than they were doing on desktop. And the attribution of like that view and that click was really poor on mobile compared to on desktop. I think what we are offering is something that has like interoperability across like your current, advertising solutions, like online, just using a desktop or using your mobile, but then having that interoperability across like everything into the metaverse. And beyond that, whatever that might look like in the future, that gives us a way to, just pipe in that kind of current existing demand, but also, offer something that it looks the same in a certain way, but offers something completely different. I think what Mike said about the rewards is a big one. Just being able to reward people means that we're going to get the eyeballs there, and then the advertising dollars will always flow towards that, really.
Awesome. Well, guys, go ahead.
I think the device really mattered as well when I lived through about 5 or 6 years of the mobile as well, which was a little bit savage, but like that you had to have an iPhone, which was essentially a black box that you really couldn't do much to as a developer, or even like the browsers were pretty limited, like we are a long way past that now. The device doesn't really matter so much. So you have much more kind of sovereignty over the app that you're in, the wallet that you're using to interact with that app that isn't dependent. You don't use your Apple Ethereum wallet, right? You just use the Ethereum wallet that follows you everywhere. So like, I think the dependency on the devices is much less than it was when the year of mobile came around. So there won't be that growing pain, learning issues, mistakes that are made because they've got a track record of 20 years. This isn't too much of a departure from the way it would technically be executed. There's much less reliance on devices, and everyone has one, so you can execute these new ad experiences at scale without there being much reliance on a particular device to deliver it, which was not true in whenever it was 2008, 2009.
Well, guys, I'm going to kind of wrap this up and move the conversation to Telegram. If you guys want to talk to the community, answer questions on how how we all kind of work together, which I really wanted you guys to have the space to express your knowledge for each other's industry and connect the two worlds. But I got to ask you guys, are you guys going to be doing a staking campaign on Lattice Exchange? This is kind of my forcing function, right?
I think so, yes.
There we go. There we go. I like it. You're like, man, put it on the spot. Really quick, for everybody that's on this channel, really quickly, each one of you, tell how Constellation improves your business or works with your business. One sentence, 2 words, nothing.
Ability to process massively scalable data, yeah. Like the same, all of this location data, all of these kind of things, being able to actually certify that and then sort of distribute that for a state channel to Alkimi's kind of where we're at.
Cool. Love it. Great.
And for us, like a lot, but I think like to kind of be specific about one thing, like I think the ability to actually reward users at a small scale, like it's not feasible with any of the existing blockchains. I mean, you can see it right now with the DAG tip bot, like that is not what be dissimilar to being rewarded for surfing the web. So like that is not feasible right now, even on layer 2 solutions, it's not worthwhile doing. So it actually makes the whole business possible, really, the fact that you can send this huge amounts of data and value fearlessly, basically, or virtually fearlessly.
Yeah, I'd second that. State channels and
Love it. Love it. I'll tell you, my vision is to have L0 token be the ubiquitous token of currency across the metaverse because it's interoperable and it's 0 transaction fees, and using state channels to validate data and make it queryable against existing centralized data sets. So there's my little plug. I have my plug, I didn't get
It's
my
fair
moment.
enough.
Yeah.
We see the metaverse like the interface layer, basically. So it's kind of an individual might walk up to a digital bank inside, maybe it's like Arve's bank, and you could just talk to your phone and be like, hey, I want to borrow some USDT. And it's like, it knows your wallet, and it's kind of like, hey, you've got this much collateral, we'll do this thing. Or a user might want to buy an NFT, which is on some chain, but they don't necessarily want to go through this complex process. So the metaverse can be used as a user interface, which has a nice experience, and we abstract away all of that other stuff in the background.
Love it. I love it. Way to put it all together. Well, guys, this has been a lot of fun. You guys are super knowledgeable about everything. I like seeing our worlds come together. I would say, hey, there's a ton of questions. I wasn't able to get to any of them. We typically use that for Telegram. I would say jump into Telegram, answer questions. We got some cool staking campaigns coming up. Door traffic miners are still in our final days, and I'm looking forward to March 2nd doing the State of the Union and really building out this partnership with all you guys. This is really cool to see how different industries all come together to make this unified vision. So guys, awesome job. Love seeing the synchronicity between all you.
Thanks very much for having us.
What channel are we going to?
Yeah, we go to.
I go to Constellation's Telegram. Make it easy.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. Home base. All right. Better guys. Thanks.
Brilliant. Cheers, Ben. That's my lads.